saying Jack the Ripper's come back?
Take him to the cells.
Sending me those letters to set me on. Here she is. The final victim.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review of the 2023 horror thriller Ripper's Revenge. The film was written and directed by Steve Lawson and it stars Chris Bell, Rachel Warren and Rafe Bird. Now the film focuses around a year after the Jack the Ripper murders. There is a newspaper reporter called Stubb. 1 year previously, at the height of the Jack the Ripper killings, he was reporting on the murders and he took creative license in his stories, added untruths in there and even created some letters that were so-called from Jack the Ripper, but he'd written himself. All to sell more newspapers and all to increase his fame and make more money. 1 year after these events, Jack the Ripper is no more, there have been no more killings, life's not that easy for him anymore, there's no decent stories out there. However, the killings start again, and he starts receiving letters from someone claiming to be Jack the Ripper that he hasn't written now himself, and he has become a direct target, him and his family. It's up to him and others to try and figure out what is going on. Right, what are my thoughts on Ripper's Revenge? Well, this is a UK-based, low-budget movie, and it's from the same director that has brought films previously in the last couple of years. The things like Highwayman, Jekyll and Hyde, Ripper Untold, and Van Helsing. Many of them are reviewed on this channel, and I think one or two of them I've done over at the Geek Legion of Doom channel as well. And they are low-budget affairs, and they take like a famous story, like Jekyll and Hyde, like I say, Jack the Ripper, Van Helsing, or Bram Stoker, or whatever, and then they kind of dramatise it in a quite insular way, if you like. They don't necessarily focus on the main character. Like the Van Helsing one focuses on Van Helsing, not Dracula. The Jekyll and Hyde ones don't necessarily focus on Jekyll and Hyde. It focuses on people surrounding the character, sort of thing. And this does the same. While this is called Ripper's Revenge, this focuses really heavily on the newspaper reporter, Stubb. Jack the Ripper is a side thought, really, for the most part. So those of you wanting to go into this film finding, you know, a really gruesome, you know, edgy, gritty Jack the Ripper film, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because while this film and the other films that I've mentioned, they are low budget, but, you know, they are decently made films. It's hard to slate these films, and this one as well, for being poor films, because, you know, some effort has gone in here to, like, the production values and the costumes, the lighting and the sets and all this kind of stuff, to try and make it feel as genuine as they can, certainly with the budget that they have to hand anyway. The actors that they bring on board are usually fairly sound at their jobs. You know, they can, and I've said this before when I've reviewed these movies from this director, it almost feels like it's a drama club has got together. You know, someone's given them a decent sized budget and they've kind of, you know, they've filmed like their dramatization sort of thing. You know, there's no what you would describe here as poor actors. They're all competent at what they do. I always find the approach to these stories fairly uninteresting. The angle that they take on these stories, I'm not really that interested in this newspaper reporter. You know, it didn't necessarily. It didn't come across anyway in the first place as a character that you want to root for, even though he has somewhat of an interesting story arc, I suppose. But it's got really predictable twists in this film, reveals, whatever you want to call them. And it's one of those that, you know, it doesn't kind of end there. You know, it does one reveal and you're kind of like, okay. Then it kind of does another one and you're like, okay, you know, you might not necessarily see them coming, but they're not. But when they get there, they're not even a surprise or that interesting, or, you know, it doesn't kind of like have that wow factor, you know, when you get a twist in films or reveals as to who the killers are or what's going on. The film just doesn't excite really. And then this one tries to top itself again and give you another twist by the end of the film. And it's just you're not invested in the characters or the story, so they don't have anything like the impact that you would want them to, or you would hope them to have, these twists and reveals. So it's a hard one to judge, this one, because like I say, I think, you know, for a low budgeted film, the production values are here. I suppose they've tried their best. They've tried to make it look authentic. It does feel that it's been, you know, they've tried their best to make it feel like of that time. But it just feels small in its approach as well. You know, the production values, you know, it's really hard to describe. It's almost like it's a stage play that has been filmed almost. And it's just, they don't excite these movies for me. My suggestion would be, I suppose, if you've seen any of these films from Steve Lawson, if you've seen any of the films that I mentioned, you know, Bram Stoker's Van Helsing, The Ripper Untold, which is another Ripper story that I reviewed, Jekyll and Hyde and Highwayman, if you've seen them and you actually quite enjoyed them, then you'll probably quite enjoy this one, because this is a very, very similarly made film. They follow the very similar beats and patterns to the other films that they make, certainly in these genre type films that he's doing. But for me, it felt a little bit below average, this one. It didn't grab me. The twists and surprises weren't interesting enough for me to hold my attention. The characters weren't necessarily interesting enough to hold my attention. And even though the acting was good, they didn't necessarily feel authentic, these people, sort of thing. And there's just not enough excitement. There's too many conversations between characters rather than investigating, or even you get a couple of scenes here and there of this Ripper killer doing his business, but it's very tame stuff as well. It's not as if you could say the horror aspects are interesting or grab your attention, because they're so brief. You don't even get really to enjoy a bit of horror really. So you couldn't really you couldn't, with your hand on heart, say that this is what you would describe as a horror film, even though it's listed as a horror. It's more of a thriller stroke drama, really, with a little bit of horror thrown in occasionally. You know, you get away with this one on BBC Two at 9 o'clock at night. Certainly, it's not a scary piece by any stretch of the imagination. So, well, I'm not sure that the BBC would show it, but you get the idea. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please click the like button. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and I will of course be back with more content on the channel very, very soon.